Good day, everyone. I am Mariell Hagiwara, the presenter of Table C Recent Policy Developments. As the previous presenter explained how each country has established its own language in education policy based on their historical background, social-linguistic context, and educational goals. However, language policy are not static. As educational needs, globalization, and societal demand continue to evolve, governments also revised their language policy to address emerging challenges and improve learning outcome. So this will bring us to Table C, Recent Policy Development, which is my part, where we examine the latest reforms implemented by the Philippines, Malaysia, Singapore, and Thailand, including their purposes, current issue, and how this reform reflect different approaches to bilingual education and language planning. So these recent reforms demonstrate how language planning continuously evolved to respond to educational challenges, globalization, and changing national priorities. More specifically, these reforms mainly involved acquisition planning. Since acquisition planning? Because the focus of acquisition plannings is language taught in school and the language of instruction, or what we call medium of instruction. So let us begin with the Philippines. Under the matatag curriculum or DepEd Order No. 010 series of 2024, the mandatory implementation of mother tongue-based multilingual education or MTB-MLE was removed because naay mga issue nga nag-arrive during sa MTB-MLE implementation where lack of resources and wala enough preparation ang mga teachers. That's why the curriculum was removed and changed, and now ang curriculum is strengthen the Filipino-English bilingual approach while still allowing multilingual supports whenever appropriate. So as you can see, or as you can observe sa MTB-MLE, from grade 1 to grade 3 or kinder to grade 3 the use of mother tongue only ends up there. Then from grade 4 to grade 5, the mandatory na ang ginagamit, which is English and Filipino. So the main purpose of these reforms, why na change, is to simplify the curriculum, improve literacy and numeracy, reduce curriculum congestion, and address long-standing implementation problems such as the shortage of instructional materials and insufficient teacher preparation. So according to Baker 2011, the former MTB-MLE represent a weak form of bilingual education. Bakit man? So particularly transitional bilingual education, because the learner's first language was primarily used as a bridge before shifting to Filipino and English. The goal was transition rather than long-term bilingualism. And however, the recent matatag reforms shifted and policy toward a stronger bilingual orientation because Filipino and English are intended to develop continuously as the two principal or official language of education. In Baker's framework, strong form of bilingual education aim to develop like bilingual competence, like you are competent in both languages, Jude. So instead of replacing one language with another, so although the policy reduce what we call institutional support for many Philippine mother tongues, it strengthened bilingual proficiency in Filipino and English, and naagyapoy support sa mother tongue. So despite these advantages, The reform has generated concern. Many educators and language advocates worry that reducing mother tongue instruction may weaken the preservation of Philippine languages, decrease mother tongue literacy, and widen learning gaps among multilingual learners, particularly those indigenous community. So, mo ni siya ang nag-arrive na current issues sa recent policy language here in the Philippines. Moving to Malaysia. So, Malaysia continues implementing the Malaysia Educational Blueprint since 2013 to 2025. While expanding the dual language program, or what we call DLP, the purpose is to strengthen students' English proficiency without weakening Bahasa Melayu. So, Bahasa Melayu was their official and national language, which is kanang nag-remain until now. So, again, from Baker's perspective, Malaysia represents a strong form of bilingual education. Why? Because the goal is additive bilingualism. Students continue to developing Bahasa Melayu while simultaneously acquiring English or their second language. Furthermore, Mandarin and Tamil vernacular school continue to maintain their community languages rather than replacing them with English or Malay. So this reflects maintenance bilingual education where both languages continue to develop over time. However, there is current issue gihapon. Several issues remain. The implementation of DLP or dual language program is unequal between urban and rural school because creating this it will create kanang disparities manggod in educational opportunities. There are also continuing debates regarding language equity and concern that greater emphasis on English could eventually reduce the status of Bahasa Melayu within the education. So, next is the Singapore. As you can see in the table, Singapore continues enhancing its long-established bilingual education policy by revising its mother tongue language curriculum and integration more digital learning platform. So the purpose is to maintain bilingual competence while adapting language instruction to students' increasingly diverse linguistic backgrounds and ensuring that English remains globally competitive. So among the four countries, Singapore best represents a strong bilingual education, specifically maintenance bilingual education as described by Baker 2011. So English function as the working language and the primary medium of instruction, while every student continues learning a designated mother tongue throughout schooling. So instead of replacing one language with another, both language are intentionally maintained and developed. So this will promote them para both global competitiveness sila, and also they have also cultural identity. So nevertheless, Singapore also faces challenges. So there are challenges gyapon nag-arise sa Singapore. So because English has become the dominant language in many homes, some students demonstrate declining proficiency in their mother tongue. So as a result, the government continuously revises its curriculum and provides differentiate instruction to preserve bilingual competence. So as you can see from Philippines, Malaysia, and Singapore, perminti lang ginabalik-balik that there is revision jud always. Then moving on finally to Thailand. So Thailand recent reforms emphasizes the improving of English education through the National Educational Plan while maintaining Thai as the principal language of instruction. Pilot multilingual programs have also been introduced in selecting minority language communities. So, the purpose is to improve English proficiency, strengthen Thailand's competitiveness with ASEAN or Association of Southeast Asian Nation, improve educational quality, and at the same time preserve national identity through the continued use of Thai. So, unlike Malaysia and Singapore, however, Thailand does not represent gani a strong form of bilingual education under Baker's classification. So, under ni kay Baker, so the country continues to follow what we call predominantly Thai monolingual education system, where English is mainly taught as a foreign language rather than being used alongside. So, Thai as sustained medium of instruction because there is no kumbaga nationwide mother tongue bilingual policy. So, Thailand remains outside Baker's strong bilingual education models, although localized bilingual initiatives naga-exist gapon. So, the country continues to face several implementation challenges, including shortage of qualified teachers, qualified English teachers, and regional inequalities between urban and rural school, and the absence of comprehensiveness national policy supporting minority languages. So these four countries demonstrate that language planning is dynamic and continuously changing according to its educational, social, and economic needs. So there is changing gapon, there is revising nga nagahitabo sa language planning and language implementation or language policy. Overall, this reform shows that successful language planning requires balancing national identity, multilingualism, educational quality, and global competitiveness, while ensuring that policy implementation is supported by trained teachers, adequate learning resources, and equitable access for all learners. So this recent policy reforms highlight both progress and the challenges of language planning. So to better understand their actual impact, so the next presenter will discuss Table D, which is challenges and successes. So which is examine how these policies have been implemented and their outcomes in each country para mas more pa siya masabtan. And that's all for my presentation. Thank you so much.
Now that we're done with the policy implementation and development, we will now be moving forward with the major success and challenges of these countries, which are the Philippines, Malaysia, Singapore, and Thailand. My name is Aryan Floyd T. Camince, and I am tasked to discuss the teacher training, the learning resources, the dominance of English language, on how they preserve minority language, and how are these policies implemented in the educational system of these countries. In the Philippines, the teachers receive training for multilingual education, the mother tongue-based multilingual education or MTB-MLE. But many teachers struggle because not all of them can speak the local language. Training is inconsistent and some schools still lack professional development. Although the government have good plans, but not all of the teachers are fully prepared. Now let's go to Malaysia. In Malaysia, teachers are well trained to teach two languages, which is the Bahasa Malaysia and English. However, rural schools have fewer qualified English teachers. In Malaysia, they train the teachers well, but city schools usually have better teachers than the rural school. Now let's go into the Singapore. Singapore has one of the best teacher training systems. The teachers there receive a pre-service training, a continuous professional development in bilingual teaching, and also they prepare their teachers for bilingual education. Singapore invests heavily in teachers so they are well prepared before they enter the classroom and continue learning throughout their career. Okay, now let's go to Thailand. In Thailand, teachers receive government training. However, the English proficiency varies on rural school, that they have often less qualified teachers. In Thailand, they want to improve English education, but teacher quality is not that consistent across the country. Okay, so let's compare and contrast these four countries in regard with the teacher training. Singapore has the strongest teacher training because the government provides continuous support and professional development. The Philippines and Thailand both experience problems with teacher readiness, but for different reasons. In the Philippines, multilingual education requires teachers to teach in many local languages. As we all know, Philippines have so many local languages. Which in Thailand, English is a foreign language and making teachers' proficiency more challenging. Malaysia falls in the middle because the teacher preparation is generally good all throughout the rural schools, but still they face shortage in regard with their teaching staff. Now let's go to our next part, which are the learning resources. First, in the Philippines, because there are more than 180 languages, the school needs different textbooks, translated materials, and localized resources. Many schools still lack on these materials. In Malaysia, most resources are available only in two languages, which are Bahasa Malaysia and the English language. This means that minority language have fewer learning materials. In Singapore, they have the standardized textbooks, digital learning platforms, and government-produced instructional materials that each and every school receives almost the same quality resources. In Thailand, Thai textbooks are widely available. English materials depends on school fundings and school location. As what I have mentioned a while ago, in Thailand, they differ if you are in an urban school or rural school, because urban school usually have better resources. So if we were to compare and contrast these four countries, Singapore has the most consistent learning resources because the government develops and distributes standardized materials nationwide. The Philippines, however, faces the challenge because multilingual education requires teaching materials in many different local languages. Malaysia and Thailand have sufficient resources for their national languages, but minority languages materials are much less available. Now let's go to the next part on how dominant the English language is on these countries. In the Philippines, English is used in universities, businesses, courts, governments, media, because they treat English as a second language. Although Filipino is the national language, English remains very influential. In Malaysia, Bahasa Malaysia is the national language. However, English is still important for businesses, higher education, international communication. They dominantly consider this as a foreign language. In Singapore, English is everywhere. It is used for instructions, businesses, governments, and daily communication. Mother tongue languages are taught mainly for cultural identity, so they treat English as a second language. Lastly, in Thailand, Thai is used almost everywhere, and English is mostly used only for tourism, international businesses, and education. So they treat English language as a foreign. They learn language as a foreign language, because outside school, only few people use English daily. So if we were to compare and contrast these four countries, Singapore demonstrates the strongest English dominance because English functions as the country's main working language. The Philippines also use English extensively, although Filipino remains the national language. In Malaysia, they balances the use of Bahasa Malaysia and English, while Thailand continues to prioritize Thai language and treats English mainly as a foreign language. Now let's go to the next part of our table on how these four countries preserve their minority language. In the Philippines, through the Mother Tongue-based Multilingual Education or MTP-MLE, children learn first using their mother tongue. One of the examples of their mother tongue languages are Cebuano, Hiligaynon, Waray, Ilocano. However, this support has weakened after the series of changes in the curriculum. In Malaysia, the government mainly promotes Bahasa Malaysia. Some indigenous languages are preserved, but support is limited. Let's go to Singapore. Only four official languages are supported: English, Mandarin, Malay, and Tamil. Smaller languages receive very little support. In Thailand, Standard Thai is prioritized. Some local languages are preserved through community programs, but national support remains limited. So if we were to compare and contrast these four countries in regard with their preservation of their minority language, the Philippines has historically provided the strongest educational support for local languages through the mother tongue-based multilingual education. In Malaysia and Thailand, they prioritize national unity by emphasizing their national languages, which limits support for minority languages. Singapore officially supports only its designated mother tongue languages, so smaller heritage languages receive only a little educational attention, though they are not diminished or dismissed. Now let's go to the last part of our table, which is challenges in policy implementation. Philippine challenges includes the lack of materials, what I have mentioned a while ago, the lack of trained teachers in many local languages, and different school situation. And as we all know, as we have discussed in the class, that the implementation is always changing. In Malaysia, language policy is mostly centralized. The challenge is to balance the Malay language and English language in the educational context. In Singapore, policies are highly organized. The government closely monitors the curriculum, the teachers' training, the assessment, and the implementation is consistent nationwide. In Thailand, implementation differs across region because schools have different budgets. Teachers have different qualifications as well. So if we were to compare and contrast these four countries, Singapore has the strongest policy implementation, because it is centralized educational system ensures consistent teacher preparation, the curriculum, and the evaluation. Malaysia also implements its language policy effectively, although balancing the Malay and the English remains an ongoing issue. As what I have mentioned a while ago, they are not really considered as an ESL or in EFL in context. The Philippines experience greater implementation challenges due to its linguistic diversity. As we all know, more than 180 languages are present in the Philippines, limited resources, and uneven teacher preparation. Thailand likewise faced regional disparities with differences in funding and teacher qualification that affects policy implementation. The biggest difference among these countries lies on how English is positioned within the society. Singapore and the Philippines are ESL in contexts where English is widely used beyond classroom in education, government, businesses, and everyday life. However, in Thailand, it is a clear EFL in context where English is primarily learned as a school subject and it is not commonly used for daily communication. However, in Malaysia, it is like a unique case because in Malaysia it occupies a middle ground. It is not often described as an EFL in context, but English still has its significant role in higher education, businesses, law, and international communication due to its historical background and multilingual society. Some scholars even describe Malaysia as having the characteristics of both EFL and ESL, depending on the context. And these distinctions explains why Singapore and the Philippines invest heavily in bilingual education, while Thailand focuses on improving English as a foreign language, and Malaysia seeks to balance the promotion of Bahasa Malaysia with the practical value of English.
Hello everyone, I'm Vincent Magnaye, and for our comparative analysis, I'm going to be covering the major successes of the four countries, which is Singapore, Malaysia, Philippines, and Thailand. So before we begin now, I would like to flash my my table or my graphic organizer that I've made for our analysis. So I think I'll just put it beside me, and yeah, I think let's start with the literacy part, because this is where the four countries are closest to each other in terms of literacy, because on average between four countries the adult literacy rate is 94%, with Singapore being the highest at 97.5%, and followed by Philippines with 96%, and then Malaysia with 95%, and lastly Thailand with 94%. So one thing to highlight about this, one of the reasons why Philippines is among the second in Southeast Asian countries, just underneath Singapore, which is notoriously known for their bilingualism and very high proficiency rates and scores in both English and mathematics exams internationally, was because of their now, I guess you could say, like discontinued, I guess, or murag ka nang pahinayan na siya ba na dili na kayo ginagamit, the MTB LME policy. So research actually linked that, because again research actually links that mother tongue instruction leads to stronger foundational reading skills. So even in MTB MLE's limited run, because kadali lang siya gigamit, teaching kids to read in their first language genuinely work. So next we have the cultural preservation of these four countries. So in like the this is in a context of like preserving their national identities, or I guess their culture. Obviously, this is where they truly start to show their differences. For example, like I think it's Thailand or Malaysia. Or no, it's Malaysia that has the highest, or the more the better way on preserving their culture, as they use their schools are like actually utilizing their mother tongues as mediums of instruction, rather than language. The same goes for the Singapore. They require like the mandatory mother tongue, where they use like their, I guess it was called Tamil and Mandarin in their learning, regardless of what they use as their first language in their home. And for the Philippines, this ranks as like, I guess, the third best one in preserving culture, because it was good back when before MLE was rolled back, but now that we are slowly replacing like our mother tongue with the bilingual medium of instruction, like the English. And so yeah, I think it's slowly I think it slowly destroys our, like, or not destroys, I mean our preservation of culture is slowly disappearing, because we're no longer using our mother tongue. And for the Thailand, this is the most limited and localized. You see it in specific programs like their Patani Malay bilingual education, but there's no like nationwide policy behind it. So I mean, I think in our group, like we like discussed if what policies, like bilingual policies in Thailand there is, and it's pretty much optional. So yeah, I think that's why it's pretty weak in cultural preservation, because it's wala kayong structure, I guess. Yeah. And for a national identity and nationalism, this is where some countries are entirely different from others. But say the similar ones, for example, is Philippines and Malaysia. They stick to having their one national language, which is for the Philippines, Filipino, and for the Malaysia, I think it was Bahasa Malaysia, and they used it because it's a symbol of their culture, history, and their identity. Though again, there are still like some regional language advocates that try to pull it away from them. So one of the different countries that uses different national languages, Singapore. They use English because they see it as a I guess you'd call it ethically natural language. Like they see it as like again, Singaporean people speak a lot of different languages, and the reason why they use English and not like other ethnic languages, it's because they see English as a natural language, where they don't see anything like the other ethnic languages dominating over the others. That's why there is no like one specific mother tongue that is way more popular than others. That's why they stick with English. And lastly, for Thailand, they use a nationwide Thai-based medium of instruction, as this reinforces, a strong sense of cultural identity. And while this has worked for cohesion purposes, there are still like some tension because Thai people from the south are still speaking Malaysian. So hence why I guess even if like cohesive kayo sila, dili pa kayo siya perfect in a sense. For the bilingual proficiency and global competitiveness, this is where the gap between the four countries are most obvious. I guess we can clearly say that Singapore is ahead. Their students consistently rank, in the top like international rankings in terms of English and mathematics proficiency, and again them being bilingually proficient has caused their country to become more of like I guess you could say like a trading hub or trading area for global opportunities, because the residents there or the citizens there can speak proper English. And the next one is our country, the Philippines. Though again we produce like some bilingually proficient students or workers, hence why like we have high overseas worker we have a high number of overseas workers. It has been declining recently, probably because of like the inconsistent changes of our language policies. And as for Malaysia, though they can provide proficient bilingual learners, their results are uneven because though they use the I think it was the dual language program, and though they can provide the learners who are in schools that uses that program can actually be proficient, not all of them uses it, so it's pretty uneven siya na level of proficiency and bilingualism in Malaysia. And lastly, is Thailand. And Thailand is, I guess you could say, the weakest in terms of bilingual proficiency, and in terms of like global competitiveness, like market wise, because they treat English not as like another language of them. They only teach it as a subject, hence why and they treat it as a subject and not as a medium of instruction, hence why it limits the country's I guess proficiency in English, and due to their limited proficiency in English, it also impacts their capability to be competitive in the global scale. So why do their successes look so different? I mean, if we take a look at the things that I've discussed today, it shows that their successes are can be directly traced back to their policies that they created, that they designed to whatever it is, to protect or to enhance. Like let's say Singapore, their policy was built around English and their mother tongue, and so that they can create proficiency in both of them. Hence why they're considered like the one of the or if not the best bilingual country in Southeast Asia, and being called that is also why they're the most competitive and even the richest country in Southeast Asia. And let's say for Malaysia, their structure, their dedication to creating the structure for vernacular education is one of the reasons why they are the best on preserving their cultural identity. And for us in the Philippines, we could we could still see that, like, even if the MTB MLE policies have been rolled back, we could still see the improvement coming from it. It's still like provide still has like some measurable results that came from it. And for Thailand, their success comes in their unity. They chose to stick to their national language and only treat the English language or the other global influences as a subject or something that isn't that important. Though again, they achieved what they want. I guess what they wanted, which is cultural or their national unity. The trade-off of it is that they are the weakest in terms of I guess in terms of bilingual proficiency and their global competitiveness, because they chose to isolate themselves rather than like say Singapore, who embraced global influences, hence why they can trade effectively with other countries. Okay, so if I were to give my takeaways from what I've gathered and learned from my topic, which is the major successes of the language policies in the four countries, I'd say that I think that there is no one singular best language policy. I guess I think their success derives on what they were trying to achieve. Let's say, for example, Singapore's desire to become globally competitive, or Malaysia wanting to preserve their cultural identity, and us the Philippines wanting to do an inclusive multilingual approach, or be it the Thailand's how do you put it, push for their national cohesion. Again, we have different things that they want to achieve through their language policies, and the only thing that I think that could measure their success is how close or did they achieve what they truly wanted to achieve with the language policies that they have created or implemented. So yeah, I think that about does it for my topic, which is the major successes, and thank you.